when it comes to like goal setting, which is, growth and goals kind of go hand in hand. 84% of the population actually doesn't even ever set goals.
When you have a partner who's more aware and more capable than you, it can be difficult to not be insecure about that.
Yeah.
And so instead of being humble and asking your partner, hey, sweetheart, I noticed that you've been like crushing it in finance lately. Can you help me? A lot of partners lash out in these weird ways.
Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals from all over the world, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. This is episode number 56. What is the episode again, love?
Are you and your partner just different?
So are you and your partner just different? And I know that a lot of people tell themselves that story. I know that I've felt that way in the past for sure. As always, we want to give a huge shout out to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show, audio, video, all of the above. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you. Mm-hmm. As always, love, ladies first. And what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention for today's episode, for all of our listeners out there, we really do intend to help you and your partner understand the difference between a relationship paradigm and one that is centered in growth, and how those differences can potentially impact your relationship in maybe a not so positive way and also in a really positive way. So Alan's got a great story for us, for one of our community members and friends. And we hope that in sharing that story, you can help identify where your relationship is, what it's rooted in, and look at all the behaviors that entangle in that.
Okay, so there's a young man, and I'm going to keep this anonymous. And he meets a young girl, and they're like right after college. They're in their early 20s, and they fall in love, and they both have friends that are big into going out, concerts and parties and barbecues and that kind of thing. Just early 20s.
Yeah.
Great thing. Been there. And so they have a bunch of friends, both of them. Mm-hmm. Their friends are meeting each other. Their friends are getting along. It's a whole thing. They also have families, and they see each other's families. So they have a very relationship-centered relationship. Mm-hmm. And I've, again, been there as well. So their relationship is centered around a lot of quality time with family and friends. And that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So this person, all of a sudden, something happens. So he has a really big falling out with his mother, and he has these challenges that come up, and he starts to process his childhood, and he starts to realize that he basically finds self-improvement, self-development, personal development. He starts listening to all these podcasts, and he starts, listening to these audiobooks, and he starts to work on himself, and he really got the bug, the personal development bug.
The good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The best one.
And if anyone's out there listening to this right now, you most likely have the bug as well, at least to some extent. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward, he's growing, he's changing, he's developing himself, he's working on himself, he's listening to these podcasts, he's going to the gym, he's doing all this work, he's creating goals and dreams. And eventually he meets me, and he reaches out and he asks, I don't know what to do. My partner and I are growing apart. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know what to do, and I can feel it, and I don't know what to do. And so I said, well, here's the thing. So it's very clear to me that you and your partner met when you two were in a relationship paradigm, meaning you both went out a lot. You both had a lot of fun. It was based on fun. It was based on mutual values. And what you valued at the time was partying, drinking, hanging out with friends and family. And that's okay, but you've shifted and she hasn't. And the honest truth is that you're not actually being truthful with her. You're not being vulnerable with her. You haven't brought this up to her. You're coming to me, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your respect and admiration. But what you really need to do, and I said this to him, straightforward. I said, honestly, I think you're the problem. Your girlfriend seems amazing to me, and you haven't even given her a chance to grow like you have because you haven't talked to her about this. And again, he was scared to talk to her. Totally understandable. And so he did. He was really vulnerable, courageous, and he went and had the conversation, and it's been off to the races ever since. And so now they grow together and not apart, and they really work on themselves together. And so they've both been coaching and all kinds of different stuff as well. But here's kind of my point. So some couples are built on a relationship paradigm. That's where they started. That doesn't mean that's where they're going to end up. So now they have goals together, not only financial, but they have dreams together too that they're trying to work towards. And so now the relationship builds the growth, and the growth builds the relationship. Whereas for a while there, it was kind of her living in that old life of mostly relationship paradigm and him shifting into the growth paradigm. But at the time, not only did I not know this, but he certainly didn't either. And so I look at my early 20s and I realized that my relationships were running a lot of my life back then.
Same.
And after 26, I got in a tough car accident, and I really shifted big time into self-improvement. And most of my focus has been grow me, goals and growth. And, our relationship, sweetheart, is very much in and was born in the growth paradigm. And so for the listeners out there, I want you to think to yourself, you have one paradigm that is built on relationships and love. And really a lot of your decisions are, whether you're conscious of it or not, are predicated on what your friends are doing, what your friends' friends are doing, what your family's doing, what your mentors or whatever are doing. And if you're in the relationship paradigm, you might not have as many mentors. So that's another cue as well. But really, when you see someone on social media who's going on a trip, all of a sudden you start to think about going on a trip versus if you have a goal to go on X amount of trips per year or whatever. If you're in a growth paradigm, most likely you have no friends. I'm kidding. Unless they're growth oriented. But most likely if you are in a growth paradigm, and this is what I've figured out, if you don't have a lot of self-belief, you're not going to have large goals. If you don't have large goals, you're not going to have a high necessity for growth. So you kind of need a lot of self-belief in order to be in the growth paradigm. And if you are in the growth paradigm, let's say you're going to the gym and you're reading personal development books and you're listening to podcasts and you're tracking your habits, whatever, you are in the minority. And you're going to either be vulnerable with your relationships and share that truthfully and say, listen, I'm not the man I used to be. I'm not the woman I used to be. I care about these goals. I do. I care about growth and personal development. Do you want to come on that journey with me? If not, I respect you. I feel you. I understand. But I'm going to have to sail away. And so that's what this episode is about, is ask yourself that question. Are you still in the relationship paradigm, which I do believe is where most people are born? Yeah. I was born into a relationship paradigm, and I know you were as well. And we quickly, shifted into a goals and growth paradigm. And honestly, for a long time, I was living in both worlds trying to make it work. And I didn't realize that this is what was happening.
Yeah. And I think we've talked actually about different paradigms and went deeper into that in another episode. So if you're listening, definitely scroll through our episodes because we went deeper into some of those paradigms.
Did we title it Paradigm?
It might have been. I wish I looked that up before.
What's your
this
relationship paradigm?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Or terrible title.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no. But essentially what we're doing in this episode is kind of showing you the bigger offsets, because what we found in our coaching and what we found in our experiences is like these two really are direct opposites, believe it or not. And the people that have the most fulfilled life, you find that they actually do a really good job balancing and leveraging both of these and all the other subsets.
I would say harmonizing.
I knew you were going to say that. I was looking for that word in my mind.
Because balancing means 50-50. Harmonizing can be.
Not necessarily. I'm a Libra, so I'm always like 80-20, 20-80. Like, fair. But anyways, okay. So with that.
A lot of people think of it as 50-50.
Truth. Yeah. Very, very true. So to that extent, I think that we found that these ones are really, they struggle to, a lot of people start in that relationship paradigm, and whether it be rooted in a deeper paradigm around friendship or it be family, right? Those are kind of the relationships that people spend their most time with. And then when you start to shift into the growth, you start to realize that it actually becomes a lot harder to spend time with all of those people, because what's actually happening underneath is that you realize people are spending time together in that capacity because they have a fixed mindset. And that fixed mindset, typically speaking, is because of their self-belief. You mentioned that. So you don't necessarily have to have high levels of self-belief to grow and to start to shift into a growth paradigm, but you do have to start into more of a growth mindset, because you have to start to believe that it's possible and possible for you, whether or not you believe in your total capabilities of actually achieving that. That's one thing that I've seen. And babe, when it comes to the point that you made about like the people in which are in this growth paradigm and why relationships can be just different, and why people that shift into a growth paradigm out of a relationship paradigm can really struggle, is because in another episode, what we shared with our listeners was that when it comes to like goal setting, which is, growth and goals kind of go hand in hand, 84% of the population actually doesn't even ever set goals. Mm-hmm. So you look at that on a larger scale, and those who are
AKA most people don't believe in themselves enough to set goals because they don't want to let themselves down, and or they don't know how to set goals.
Yeah. And what happens, so that 16% of people that do set goals, the 3% that actually do achieve those, that's a small subset, to your minority point, of the population. What happens is when you start growing and when you start really setting goals, you start to kind of grow away from the large majority that you're spending the most time with in relationships. And we oftentimes see this, you're getting in a relationship that's centered around fun and just strictly spending quality time with friends, let's say college. And then you start to shift, you get older, you get busier. That's what we kind of put the air quotes on. But really what starts happening is you start seeing people that are really looking for more depth in life. And whether it be, a tragic car accident where you have your whole life flipped on your head, or you start to want to have more depth and you realize the superficial life isn't really it's not doing it for you. And so that's when the inner world work starts coming in. That's where the growth starts coming in. That's where the goals that you set actually start to kind of pull you away from all of those relationship paradigms. Why? Because at the end of the day, you start to realize how many people in a relationship paradigm actually struggle to set goals in the first place. So it becomes really, really hard to, when you do shift, like this person did, shift gears out of the relationship to the growth, you're like, oh man, I don't know if everyone else wants to come with me. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people, and this is where the crabs in the bucket analogy comes in, wants to kind of tear me down.
Hi, my name is Jason Blackstock, and this is my wife, Lisa. We got connected with Alan and Emilia a few months ago through friends, and we were trying to look for ways to strengthen our relationship.
And right away, we just noticed with Alan and Emilia how they made us feel so calm, and like everything that they did with us was gentle, and it felt so like we could let our guard down right away. And that was something that allowed us to open up and just get closer so quickly. So
yeah, I felt it was very easy to connect with them. And their intuition for our situation was very surprising to me. Both past and present, they just knew us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they picked up on things that we didn't even think they would. They just, even in our mannerisms and the way we would look at each other at certain points in the conversation, it was just really cool to feel like they understood us. And it really gave us all the tools that we needed to work on us when we weren't talking directly to them. So we had like homework to do and things to work on, and it really elevated our relationship in big ways. And I think we're both really excited to keep working with Alan and Emilia, because you're never done working on your relationship. And I just feel like that is, if we're good, then the rest of our world is good with our children and our 4 kids. So
yeah, we're very grateful that we met Alan and Emilia and are looking forward to the future.
So for someone who is in a growth paradigm or shifts into the growth gear, if you will, in their relationship, but yet their partner is still in the relationship, there's nothing wrong with that. And I want to make sure that that's clear and comes through. You're different, and that's beautiful. How and what percentage of your relationship can actually really benefit from the relationship paradigm or from the growth paradigm? And I think that this is a great jump off spot for that dialogue to start happening in your relationship.
So this is what I've found. So if you're in a growth paradigm, most likely you are focused on your goals. If you're with someone who's in a relationship paradigm, they might set goals because they're in a relationship with you.
Yes.
So the way I see it, and this is what I've done with clients, because usually when I have a client, a lot of times they have an intimate partner. And what happens is I dial up the goals and the growth.
Yeah.
And that's what coaching does. I mean,
Mhm.
it's aspirational discipline. And their partner starts to react in sometimes negative ways.
Yeah.
And so I say, okay, it's time to be vulnerable, and then teach and share this stuff with your partner so now they can set goals as well, so that you can grow together and not apart. And this is it's an extreme analogy, but I'll just use it. So if your partner is is trying to be an Olympic athlete, and let's say they want to be an Olympic level, I don't know, tennis player, they're going to have to play a lot more tennis than you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they're going to have to miss the barbecue, or they're going to have to miss the holiday or whatever, because they have the Olympics coming up.
Yeah.
And so if whoever has the larger goals, I think has to lead. Here's why. If you have the larger goals, that means underneath that, you probably have more self-belief if they're authentic goals of the heart and not ego. If you have more self-belief, you're going to have a bigger vision. If you have a bigger vision that you're trying to manifest, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to work smarter. You're going to have to learn more. So you're going to end up more aware and more capable. When you have a partner who's more aware and more capable than you, it can be difficult to not be insecure about that.
Yeah.
And so instead of being humble and asking your partner, hey, sweetheart, I noticed that you've been like crushing it in finance lately. Can you help me? A lot of partners lash out in these weird ways.
Yeah.
And so we have a bunch of episodes that all kind of center around how to navigate this.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of this episode, let's just leave it here. Are you in a relationship paradigm? Are you in a growth paradigm? And where did you start versus where you are now? And same questions for your partner. If you have a partner who is maybe not as open to growth, this would be a good indicator. If you are reluctant to ask them to listen to this episode, most likely they're in a relationship paradigm. They have friends that are very focused on going out and having fun, and that's okay.
Right.
But what I want to also make clear is a growth paradigm doesn't mean you can't have fun.
Definitely not.
I think the difference between the growth and relationship paradigm, very last thing I'll say here, the growth paradigm, fun is a byproduct of growth, whereas the relationship paradigm, fun is the goal. And so I think that, what is important to shift in your thinking, if you're out there and you have been having a relationship paradigm, or maybe your partner does, and maybe they're not persuaded about growth, we can have more fun when we're more growth oriented, because we're going to have more freedom and time and abundance and finances. If we set goals, yes, we're going to have to work harder and smarter, but when you work harder and smarter, you're going to attract better people, better opportunities, better business opportunities. You're going to make more money. So then you can have more time freedom as well. So I hope that this episode stirred something up for you. The goal on every episode is giving yourself permission to be uncomfortable, giving yourself permission to be triggered. I like to call it shaking the snow globe. I would consider it a disservice if not every one of these episodes didn't shake your snow globe, which is basically everything you thought you believed about yourself, about others, about the world. It got shaken up a little. And what lands, hopefully, will be more of the truth. And that's really the goal. So now you can make more effective decisions. And so I know these episodes always shake my snow globe. Emilia and I have talked about that a lot behind the scenes. These episodes are tough for me because this is outside my comfort zone, a lot of these things, particularly talking about relationship paradigm versus growth paradigm. Because growing up, I always had big goals, and I never understood why I didn't get along with certain people, or at least it felt difficult to get along with people.
You and I have had some pretty interesting breakthroughs as a result of that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like the paradigm thing. You and I talking about that has really changed some things in our world and so many other people's worlds as well.
Could be specific.
Like because I remember, to your point, I remember it was so difficult to get along with so many people, and I didn't have the words to articulate why that was and why I was in a relationship where I really just didn't feel like my partner understood me. And like there was always an aspirational part of me that like, even when we were done with XYZ, I still wanted to go like work on my goals and dreams. And like whatever that form took, I like genuinely felt misunderstood. And so now I have the words, and because of you and I's breakthroughs and masterminds and how we've been able to articulate this to not only ourselves, but our clients and other people, it's like, Oh,
Yeah, it's so obvious now.
You look at people's behavior and if it's entirely directed towards appeasing people and making people happy and celebrating people, like if people are the center point, then that's a relationship paradigm. Mm-hmm. And you and I grew up in that and had relationships where it was that. And we wanted to tear our hair out because it was like, why does this not make sense? It's different, but the contrast was way too big for us to be able to be happy and fulfilled.
And by tear our hair out, here's what we mean. We never felt fully understood. And here's the problem. Other people didn't feel understood by us either.
I know.
Because if we don't value what you value and you don't value what we value, we're gonna miss each other. It's like the love languages. You just keep butting heads and missing each other. So our relationship, I'm so grateful, is built on growth.
Yeah.
And love is a byproduct. Mm-hmm. Love is not the goal. Growth is the goal. And I think that any intimate relationship that's out there that has growth as the goal, individually and collectively, you're going to be more in love because obviously you're going to get better, you're going to learn, you're going to contribute at a greater level. So again, we didn't know this either. So if you didn't know this and this triggered you, trust me, we didn't either. It took me 30 plus years to figure this one out. And it's still helping me today. So thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. We have a Relationship Talks virtual event coming up. It's March 9th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to remember the title right now. It's our 21st event. It's on creating financial goals with your partner. So again, don't just wing it. You can be wealthy with your partner. It's much easier together than apart. You have a combined income. It's amazing. I actually was just talking to one of my team members who got married recently, and she's like, I can't even believe it. If we weren't married, we would have only had $1,400 back on our taxes. We got $6,000 back because we're married. Yeah. So there's like, and again, there's benefits, taxes to that.
Yep.
But what's more important than just a tax benefit to being married, but being really in a relationship is that you can be a team.
Yeah.
You're going to achieve way more together, assuming you can work on a team well. So that's what that Relationship Talks event is about, is make sure you're heading in the same financial direction. And the registration link will be in the show notes.
What also is in the show notes is the link to Alan and I's calendar, which we allocate 30 minutes every single Saturday to our listeners. So we recently hopped on a call with one of our listeners. They took advantage of that. And I'm so happy that they did because it was such an extraordinary call. Super informal. They jumped on. It was Zoom.
You know who you are.
Completely private. And they really just were talking to us about a relationship challenge that they've had. And, you know, we got to know each other on that call. It was so transformative. It was beautiful. We had it was just really, really nice to be in good company. And they were able to walk away with, you know, customized homework that was specifically for them because they were open for that and wanted that. But if you're someone that's struggling just like them, please do take advantage of that time because you really never know what could happen on the other end of like 30 minutes. It's crazy. Like it was only 30 minutes and their relationship is totally now transformed in a different way that would never have occurred had it not for all of us getting in a room. So that was really awesome. It's completely private and free. If you're struggling with this topic or any other topic, honestly, that we talk about on this podcast, please take advantage of that. We would love to meet you. And that was an absolute blast too. So who would have known relationship struggles and fun could go together? That's what this is all about.
And even if you just want to jump on the Zoom with us and tell us how awesome this podcast is, it's whatever. It's totally up to you. No big deal. We love compliments. I'm joking. No, those are awesome. And we hope that you book. We love to meet our listeners. As always, sweetheart, it is not about me. No, wait. It is not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.